Hi, ladies and gentlemen. In this episode, I'm going to build the main passenger train station for the old town center. I have already connected a highway connection from the interchange I built in the last episode, and laid the basic road structure so that I get a feeling for the size of the area. I also chose the main station building, and it is going to be the East European train station from the workshop. The link for it is in the description. Now, I'm not 100% satisfied with how it looks, but it is the best one I could find that fulfills all my criteria. And the most important thing is that it fits the theme I'm trying to achieve quite well, especially when we take into consideration the turbulent history of most European cities. What I also wanted to say at the beginning is that this episode is going to be accelerated 15 times, while my previous videos were only 8 times. The main reason for that is that I often find myself skipping longer time lapses in these sort of videos, so I didn't want to drag this to a 15 or 20 minutes time lapse video. Anyway, I just wanted to say that in order to get your opinion. Is this too fast, or can it still be followed? Since there is a lot of building the same part over and over again in the time-lapse, even though I cut quite a bit of it out, it is, in my opinion, still followable. But it is your opinion that matters, so if you have one on the subject, leave it in the comments and I will try to adjust accordingly. There are two things I want to talk about in this video. First is how I make catenaries behave the way I want to, and the second is how train tracks behave when edited with Move It. So, let's get the rambling started. As you can probably see, I choose to have catenaries enabled on my tracks because I think in Europe there is generally a lot more train tracks made for electric trains rather than diesel ones. And more importantly, I want to be able to use electric trains in this city. And I just can't bear to watch an electric train drive on train tracks without any power cables above it. So, I'm stuck with all of this added work. I would definitely not recommend to have train tracks with catenaries, unless of course you don't mind clipping or a lot of extra work. I couldn't say for sure, but I think it would have taken me half the time it actually did if I didn't need to worry about the position of the power lines when building this train station. But if you're like me and want to have power lines over your train tracks all aligned, here are a couple of tips I found work quite well. First thing to note is that each train track segment that you build only has the catenary on one side. So, by flipping the direction of the train tracks, or building them from one node in opposite directions, you can actually get a gap of 24 units between two catenaries. And you will see me do that quite often in this video. That single fact has helped me a lot in my train yard builds, because it allows you to get rid of almost all clipping of catenaries over the tracks themselves. Just by simply changing the train tracks into one way, reversing their direction, and then changing it back to two-way. Although for that to work, you will need to have the one-way train tracks mod enabled. Link also in the description. If you don't have that mod, you can just delete the segment of train track that is causing the clipping and build it in the opposite direction. Moving on to the Move It mod and how train tracks behave when edited with it. I'm going to talk about how they behave when you change the curvature on them, because there is really nothing to talk about when editing the nodes. You just move them until you have the catenaries aligned, or until they are in any position you want them to be. Now, when branching the tracks off of the main line, you will often get a lot of glitching. And of course, Move It comes to the rescue. What you want to do is basically the same thing I did in my previous video about smooth road connections, with one key difference. When you select the segment of the branched off track with Move It, you want to move the green circle as close as possible to the connection with the main line. Unlike with roads, where you wanted it to be as close as possible to the free node. If you pay close attention, you can see me do that in a couple of places near the end of the video. I hope at least some of you understood what I wanted to say without any visual aid, but I fortunately didn't have the time to record it in this video, so I would like to apologize for it. Anyway, this time-lapse is slowly coming to an end, so I guess it is time for all the usual things that come at the end of a video. I hope that you enjoyed, or that it was at least somewhat helpful. Now, even though the last few videos weren't really detail heavy, I promise you there will be a lot of detail work when I get the basic infrastructure in place, so consider subscribing for more content. If you want to reach me for anything, you can do that on Twitter, or of course in the comments section below, where all feedback or suggestions are hugely appreciated. That is it. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and you will see me next time.